Laptop or tablet? Why not both? This is the Microsoft Surface Book 3, a premium device that can be either. It's available in a smaller 13.5-inch size or larger 15-inch model, which has the option of higher-end specs, and is what I've got here. Build quality feels excellent. It's got a magnesium exterior and silver finish. Let's start out by discussing the hinge and screen, as this is what really makes the Surface Book unique. Basically, you can remove the screen from the keyboard, allowing you to use it as either a traditional laptop or as a Windows tablet. Both halves of the Surface Book have their own battery, though the one for tablet operation is smaller. The Intel CPU is behind the screen, while the Nvidia discrete graphics is in the keyboard half. So heavy graphical tasks can only be done with the base attached. That said, you can attach the screen in reverse and still use it like a tablet for drawing and still take advantage of the Nvidia GPU and extra battery power. Microsoft is using a custom hinge to make this work. When you open the lid, the hinge sort of rolls back, and when the device is closed, there's a gap at the back, which they're confident won't cause any problems over time. To remove the screen, you just press the dedicated detach button next to the delete key on the keyboard, and it will tell you when it's safe to remove in Windows. Apparently, removal is 3 times faster than the older Surface Book 2. I haven't used the older model, but I can say that it didn't feel like it took too long. But it may depend on what applications you've got open. If the discrete graphics is in use, it will ask you to close those apps first. You can proceed anyway, which will automatically close the necessary apps for you, rather than dynamically move the workload over to the integrated graphics. You've also got the option of doing the swap through software without the physical button. I found it difficult to remove the screen with both hands on the top half. The best way was to place one hand on the base to keep it from lifting up. Reattaching was easy enough, it's guided in with magnets. Tablet mode felt much better when compared to a 2-in-1 device. You're not holding the entire weight of the machine, so even at 15 inches, it wasn't too heavy. But that said, I'd probably prefer the smaller 13-inch model here. Unlike a 2-in-1, you're also not putting your hands on the keyboard to hold it, which always felt a bit weird to me. The touchscreen itself uses a 3:2 aspect ratio with high but not quite 4K resolution. I found the screen to be responsive, but it doesn't come with a pen. The Surface Pen is separate. The bezel looks a little thick compared to alternative laptops, but I think it's a reasonable compromise to make it comfortable to hold as a tablet. I've measured the color gamut with the Spider 5 and got 93% of sRGB, 64% of NTSC, 69% of Adobe RGB, and 68% of DCI-P3. At full brightness, I measured the screen at 380 nits with a 1230:1 contrast ratio. So good brightness and contrast, but a little lower on the color gamut than I was expecting for a premium device. Not bad, just a bit lower. There was only very minor backlight bleed in this worst case, but this will vary between laptops and panels. Microsoft lists the weight at 1.9 kilos, which is what I'm getting. With the 127-watt power brick and cables for charging, this increases to almost 2.4 kilos or 5.2 pounds. As a tablet, the screen by itself was 815 grams or 1.8 pounds. The power brick also has a 7-watt USB Type-A charging port. It's not too big for a 15-inch device. The thickness varies as the back is thicker due to the hinge. The hinge is rock solid and runs along the entire width of the machine. There was next to no flex when trying to twist the lid, which makes sense given it acts as a standalone tablet. Chassis flex was also on the lower side when pushing down hard. It feels extremely sturdy and solid. It opens up easily with one finger, despite feeling more back and top heavy, which would be a result of the extra components behind the screen to get it working as a tablet. The screen still tilts back far enough without making it unbalanced though. When you open the lid, the laptop automatically powers on, which makes sense. Chances are, if you're opening the lid, you want to use it. By default, closing the lid will put it to sleep, and when you open the lid, it resumes from sleep extremely quickly. If you combine this with Windows Hello, it pretty much wakes up and logs you straight in. There are 2 1080p cameras. The one above the screen is 5 megapixel, and there's another on the front lid which is 8 megapixels. Both the camera and sound quality are significantly better than most other laptops. And this is what the camera on the front looks like. The front-facing speakers are towards the top of the screen on the left and right, so you can still use them in tablet mode. They sounded good, definitely above average for a laptop with some bass, and they were still clear at maximum volume. It wasn't super loud, but I prefer quality, and the latency mon results were looking good. The keyboard has white backlighting which illuminates all keys and secondary key functions. However, I found the white lighting difficult to see in a well-lit room when paired with the silver keys, so you might want to only use the keyboard lighting in darker environments. It can be adjusted between 3 levels or turned off with the F1 shortcut key. Typing on the keyboard felt excellent, definitely one of the better ones I've used. Here's how it sounds to give you an idea of what to expect. I like that the function key locks on or off, so you don't have to hold it if you want to use the F keys up the top. The only thing I didn't personally like, apart from the small arrow keys, was the button for detaching near the backspace. I only mispressed it once, which just resulted in the screen going a bit flaccid until you reattach it. The glass precision touchpad was amazing. Again, one of the best I've used. It clicks down anywhere, but given the size available, it probably could have been bigger. It was extremely accurate to use, though the click is quite audible. Fingerprints don't show up at all on the silver finish. They do show up on the glossy screen though, but that's the nature of touchscreens unless you're only using a pen. On the left from the back, there are two USB 3.1 Gen 2 Type A ports and SD card slot, and on the right there's a 3.5mm audio combo jack right down the front, USB 3.1 Gen 2 Type C port, no Thunderbolt though, and the power connector. The power adapter can connect either way and it uses magnets, so if you accidentally trip over the cable, it easily comes out without taking the machine with it. And you can also optionally instead charge with the Type-C port. The 3.5mm jack is on the top section, so you can still use it when in tablet mode, but when in laptop mode, it's kind of awkward. The front has a groove in the middle for getting your finger in to open the lid, and there's a power button and volume adjustment buttons towards the left. Again, for use in tablet mode, though you can still use them in laptop mode too. Meanwhile on the back, we've just got a view of that big hinge. Underneath is clean too, literally nothing other than some feet. They seemed to be more of a hard rubber, meaning they're not very grippy when on a flat surface. It doesn't seem to be user upgradable. I haven't found any upgrade guides or easy way of getting inside in any case. The 15-inch Surface Book 3 is powered by a 22 Wh battery in the screen section, and largest 63 Wh battery in the keyboard section, so 85 Wh total. Windows will report the charge level of both batteries independently. I've tested it with the screen brightness at 50% and keyboard lighting off. It lasted for just over 7 hours in the YouTube playback test, a respectable result. In tablet mode, it lasted for 2 hours and 47 minutes in the same test. I was only able to test gaming in laptop mode as the Nvidia graphics is in the keyboard half, and noted some interesting behavior. First off, the result in gaming was above average. However, the game was automatically closed once the battery in the keyboard section reached 8% remaining. I think the Nvidia GPU just gets disabled, and this was despite the battery in the top half still being at 45%. It's also worth noting that you're not able to detach the screen if the screen's battery is at 10% or lower. If the screen's battery runs out in tablet mode, you can still use it when docked to the base if that battery is charged, but the battery behind the screen will not charge off of the keyboard battery. It needs to be plugged into wall power to charge. Now let's talk about thermals. It was cool to the touch at idle, as the GPU in the keyboard section wouldn't be doing anything and the processor is behind the screen. When under combined CPU and GPU stress test, it warms up in the middle, but it hardly felt warm, still comfortable. And the top panel heats up too, as the Intel CPU is behind the screen. Let's have a listen to fan noise. It was completely silent at idle, and even when under load, the fan was still on the quieter side when compared to others. Warm air is exhausted below the screen from the GPU, and out of the sides of the screen for the CPU. The internals were cool at idle, and then when under combined CPU plus GPU stress test, it wasn't getting too hot. In this heavy worst case workload, the CPU was given 18 watts for PL1. The 1660 Ti Max-Q was reporting as hitting both power and thermal limits despite only being 61 degrees Celsius. This resulted in the processor running at 2.6 GHz over all 4 cores in this stress test. Undervolting didn't work. In a GPU-only load, the 1660 Ti Max-Q would sit at 55 watts, which seems to be below the 60 watts specified by Nvidia. I didn't expect the GPU would drop about 20 watts lower with the CPU active, given it's in a different part of the machine with a separate cooling solution, so there must be some power limitation there. In a CPU-only workload like Cinebench though, the 1065 G7 is able to run up to 25 watts for PL1. In Cinebench, processor performance was on the lower side when compared to others I've tested. Single core performance wasn't too bad, but multi-core is limited by the power limit of the processor. And look, I get it. You can't exactly shove a beefy 45 watt part in something like this due to the limited cooling on the screen half. I've exported one of my laptop review videos with Adobe Premiere, and the Surface Book 3 was on the lower side out of the options I've recently tested. I've also tested Adobe Premiere, but with the Puget Systems benchmark tool, which tests more things such as live playback. And again, the Surface Book 3 was closer to the bottom of the stack. It was in the same position in the Adobe Photoshop test. and then down a spot when it came to DaVinci Resolve. While not exactly a powerhouse due to the lower wattage processor, it's definitely still capable of running these sorts of workloads, just don't expect excellent performance. Although not a gaming laptop, it should still be possible to kick back at the end of the day and play some games with this level of hardware. I've got the results of the Surface Book 3 in Battlefield 5 shown in red, and it's actually doing a bit better than what I expected considering the Max-Q graphics and lower wattage processor. Far Cry 5 was tested using the game's benchmark tool, and the Surface Book 3 was placed similarly here too at just under 70 FPS with ultra settings. In Shadow of the Tomb Raider, it's just able to manage 60 FPS at max settings, so not bad results all things considered. I've used Crystal Diskmark to test storage, and the 512GB SSD was performing fairly well. The SD card slot was also doing well too, and the card sticks out by this much and doesn't click in. For updated pricing, check the links in the description, as prices will change over time. At the time of recording, in the US we're looking at $2,800 for the configuration I've tested here. Paying more gets you more storage, but there are cheaper options too. The 13-inch model with same specs for instance is more than $500 less. Meanwhile, here in Australia, the configuration I've tested is above 4,400 Australian dollars, so definitely premium pricing for a premium device, no surprises there. Overall, Microsoft's Surface Book 3 is a well-built machine, and is offering a unique combination of laptop and tablet with its bendy hinge. I thought the implementation worked well, but considering the price, you'll mainly want to consider this machine if you really need the tablet experience in the same device, as it is possible to get a better performing laptop for less money, and possibly even a dedicated tablet. The specs in my higher end model are definitely capable, but yeah, due to the custom form factor, there are trade-offs being made with regards to performance for the design. Thermals were fine, and it always ran quiet, even when being stressed. But this is a result of lower power limits. The dual cameras put others to shame, the 3x2 screen looks good, keyboard and touchpad were amazing to use, and battery life was up there too. Lack of Thunderbolt in a solution like this is a bit unfortunate, especially for those that might already have a dock. Otherwise, apart from the higher price, I didn't have too much to complain about. Not having upgrade options does suck, but I can understand why it may not be possible in a custom design like this. Again, it's really going to come down to how much you'll benefit from the option of using it as a tablet as well as a regular laptop. Anyway, let me know what you thought about Microsoft's Surface Book 3 down in the comments. And if you're new to the channel, then get subscribed for future tech reviews like this one.